Hey, you're listening to The Truth in Her podcast with Madeline
and Mary. From funny jokes to thought-provoking conversations, we are two friends here to share our laughs, insights, and everything in between.
So settle in wherever you might be and get ready to hang out with the Truth in Her family.
Hi everybody, this is my podcast called The Truth in Her podcast, and this is my friend Madeline.
Hi.
And we basically do it together, but for today we're going to be talking about my project I'm doing for this class. So I have like a whole outline, and basically what we're going to do is I'm just going to talk through it, and then Maddie's going to be here to help express the thoughts that I have for this project. So basically,
Let's get to it.
Yep. So what I'm doing for this project is the true transformation in our favorite Disney princesses. So, in fairy tales like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Rapunzel, there's a motif of divine or romantic union that kind of serves as a metaphor for a spiritual awakening.
Oh.
In a sense that while love feels central, it is the personal transformation through like the sacrifice, the suffering, or the soul recognition that really defines the tale's meaning, and it's kind of hidden under the love story.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, you see these people falling in love and it like changes their lives in the end.
Yeah.
And yes, while the love story does play into their transformation, it's like what's actually happening underneath all of that.
Right.
What's really changing on the inside for them.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of hard to believe, like, the Little Mermaid fell in love with this guy and she like does all of that just for this guy.
Yeah, that's true.
It has a deeper meaning. Like, come on now.
And then also I think it's interesting, like, growing up, we never, whenever we watched those movies, we were always looking at them from the point of view of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we never really thought about, like, oh, that's an actual person.
Yeah.
Like, and they have, like, what might that have felt for them? What did that feel like to be in those kinds of shoes, for that to have happened to them?
Absolutely. So I'm kind of going off of Disney princesses in this sense, just because, I really grew up with those tales, and like you said, we never really thought of it as like a personal, understanding of these characters.
Right.
And to really think about them like that, it really helped me dive into this thought a little bit more and like connect to these characters a little better.
It's so interesting to see how we viewed them then as young kids compared to how we view them now as self-actualized adults who can see maybe ego
trauma and issues.
Yeah, and like genuinely see someone for like something that they might be going through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Rather than someone as like, oh, they're falling in love and they have a Prince Charming.
Yeah.
I want that too.
It's very fairy tale.
So fairy tale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, what is really going on behind these issues and these motivations that these people are having.
Obstacles and hardships.
Like there's actual like reasons, I feel like.
Right.
So that's why I was like, I really want to talk about this. Like,
yeah.
Come on.
Okay,
so what really is transformation? We talk about it all the time, from like glow-ups, falling in love, like big things that change your life, You meet the guy, he changes your life. You get the job, that changes your life. But, what transformations that don't really show on the outside is what I really want to focus on.
Okay.
Like, yes, it's going to show on the outside, but I think sometimes in these fairy tales, they don't put enough pressure on what's really going on.
Like the emphasis
personally for the girls.
On an internal...
Yeah, on an internal level. Like you're saying, like how do they resolve some of the problems they've been having?
Yeah.
Or some of the habits that they've been going through mentally?
Right.
How is that getting resolved?
Yeah.
How are they transforming on the inside necessarily?
Okay. Interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah. So, like, fairy tales often get framed around, like, external changes, like when the beast becomes a man.
It's so external.
And the mermaid gets legs.
Yeah.
the girl gets rescued from the tower, but the real transformations are inner, like emotional, spiritual, psychological.
Right.
What are those kind of transformations that are causing? They're almost like the root of these big external things that are happening.
And they really only show the actions or reactions to these big events.
Like, why are these people feeling motivated to do certain things?
Right.
You know?
Yep. That's a great word, is the motivation.
Right. So the main theme for this is kind of like love as a path to the self. So
Gotcha.
I feel like in a lot of the fairy tales, the external situation is a love story. Mm-hmm. And so how does that kind of lead us into the path of the self?
Right.
Through the love story. How does that help these people know more about themselves and all of that stuff?
Yeah.
So,
it is an interesting thing about love. We were just having this conversation recently. I feel like it isn't until we are inside of deep, soulful, connective relationships that we truly see who we are as people.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we're single, we don't have the opportunity for these responses to happen. You know, we become initiated because we're having a vulnerable connection with somebody.
Yeah.
And with that, our then reactions tell us, oh, that's what I feel when this person does something completely different that, you know, we're being responded to as well.
Yeah.
So then when we're responded to, we then feel some sort of way and we get information on how we feel about that response and what happens with all these actions.
It's so, like, awakening in a way.
It truly is. And it, you know, we're mirrors for each other.
We are.
You know what I mean? And that vulnerability is made when there's two people there.
Yeah.
You know, it's a shared experience.
Yeah.
And we you're right, like we truly know ourselves deeper on different levels when we're in romantic relationships.
I agree.
And I think you're right. It's a path to the self for these princesses because, you know, all of them were romantic relationships.
Yeah, and maybe all it took for them was somebody to come along and say, yo, what the heck's going on around here?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, to kind of be that mirror for them and be like, okay, this is the tipping point for me in all of my problems and things that I want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tip over the edge because this one thing came into my life. So often the love story kind of comes in and then something happens.
Yeah.
You know, the girls, what they were once unhappy with, it spills over and then they start to learn through that and see things through either their partner or what their partner is showing them, and then sometimes they end up wanting something completely different, and they break away from these traumas and these habits that they used to have because of the love story. And I think, you know, you're right, like a relationship really does show you things that you would have never brought up yourself.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we walk through life and we just validate what we feel all the time because we don't want to address some of the bad things. We don't want to think that we're doing the wrong thing. But when someone else comes along and says, hey, like, I see this, I see that, you know, why are you doing this? It can be very triggering, but it helps us be like, wow, you know, I never really saw it like that.
Yep.
And this could be an opportunity for me to heal and make different decisions and kind of redirect my life.
Fully. We're held accountable in these relationships, and it's a great thing because when you're alone, you just constantly want to confirm your bias and stay comfortable.
Yeah.
But then when you have someone else being like, guess what?
Yeah. Hey, you know what?
That's a little crazy.
Yeah. So I think that that's exactly what's going on for these girls.
Yeah.
So a question I had was, has love changed these women, or was it an open door to somewhere other than where they were? So was it the love that really is changing them, or was it the tip of the iceberg that allowed them to
just
think
like
it was
the
okay
natural...
to just start changing?
Okay.
You know, was it an excuse in a way to be like the Little Mermaid, for example, was it an excuse for her to finally get away from her dad?
Yeah.
And to finally just feel rebellious.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like specifically with Beauty and the Beast, like,
So we can ponder on that. But the first story I want to talk about is The Little Mermaid.
Oh.
That's the first one. So we're going to go through the 3 stories.
Okay.
And kind of talk about them individually. So that way we can, have a good transition.
I'll be pondering over here.
So her longing isn't just for a prince, it's for a way out.
Okay.
She was the youngest of all her siblings.
Yeah.
She has like 12 sisters, right? Or something crazy.
That's
and just her dad. And
I remember when they were like setting up all like, and they were in her room and like they were all having their connections and their, you saw their daily life and it was like, wow, that's a lot of like information in 30 seconds of a piece of a movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the Little Mermaid kind of just, was an outcast in a way because she was the youngest.
Yeah, exactly.
She was the youngest. She felt lost. She didn't feel like she had a purpose. Her dad was really overprotective.
Yeah.
She naturally felt rebellious, maybe because of a lack of attention.
Right.
Who knows? But she's the youngest. She felt like she didn't have a voice, which is...
That's exactly what it is, yeah.
Kind of shows why she gave up her voice and everything.
Right.
Losing her voice was a fair trade with the wicked sea urchin.
Yeah.
Because
Ursula.
It wasn't valued in the first place. Not by her, not by her dad, not by her sisters. Mm-hmm. Every time she spoke up, she was never heard.
Yeah.
She was never taken seriously.
Ever.
So when it came time to finally be rebellious and get what she wants, of course it was a fair trade because there was no value to her voice. And I think that's kind of like symbolic in a way.
How interesting. So did she give up her voice? So in this instance, she didn't give up her voice for the prince. She gave it up for herself. Yeah. To explore the world and to see other things that weren't just her life, So I think in this instance it wasn't the love, but more so like the tipping point of like the peak, the climax of this bad situation.
Yeah, because she didn't really meet the prince really.
Right. It was just
she was on the beach.
Exactly.
I mean, she did save him from the shipwreck.
Right, but it was just like a coincidence that they happened at the same time.
Right. And is she really going to do all that for a prince she saved in the water?
Right.
Maybe, but if we're talking a realistic connection with these characters.
Yeah. Like a human.
It was an excuse in a way.
Right.
It was kind of like that's like the final like kind of reason I needed to do something crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So
just her breaking point.
Mm-hmm. So when someone, meaning the prince, was actually interested in what she had to say, she couldn't even speak. So I think this is where her learning comes into play with the prince. She's learning that she does have power in her voice, that she does have a place somewhere in this world, and the prince really helped her learn that. He gave her the attention she needed.
Right.
He let her see the world when, nobody else really took the time to be with her.
Yeah.
And she kind of learned that my voice does have a purpose. Right. And while she didn't even have a voice, she felt the most heard that she's ever felt in her life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that healed her for the prince to like be there for her.
Right. It not only showed her like how impactful her voice can be, but it also showed her how impactful another human who values her voice can be.
Exactly. So she learned how to communicate wisely and learned to trust in the leadership of others a little bit more. And she learned to kind of lean into the prince and trust his ability to lead her. Trust that that was the right thing, and she learned how to communicate without thinking too much in a way.
Yeah, without having that imbalance of not understanding what her voice might mean. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. She like learned the power of her voice by not having it. Yeah. Because like once you take something away, you're like, wow, I really want that back.
Exactly.
So
you always want something once it's gone, right?
Yeah. So in the end, I think her quest to find love was really a journey of learning the power of her tongue and communication and learning who and how to trust, and then also learning how to enter the world on your own. Yeah. and how to navigate all of that and make the right decisions and
Yeah.
such.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on who to trust. Who to trust, who values my voice, who's going to take what I want seriously and
Yes.
and value me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think her love story did help that, and I think what was under the surface needed to be said, because it wasn't just the prince. It was the prince, but it was also a lot under the surface.
Yeah, there
more
was
than just her love story.
There was definitely a lot of baggage that came, and and getting rid of her voice, was part of the initiation. It was a negative thing, but then, having the prince still value her without her voice,
It healed her.
And even pushed her even further to be like, okay,
Yup.
I'm loved even without it. And that's true love.
Yeah.
That's true love.
And she felt so seen and heard, and more than her dad ever showed her, more than her sisters ever showed her.
Even when she had a voice, yeah.
Yeah, even when she had a voice.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's transformation right there.
Yeah. True love, too. Love that
True love.
initiates and grows.
And it heals.
Yeah, exactly.
True love that actually heals and makes you a better person.
That's hard work.
And shows you maybe how you do things wrong, and maybe shows you a different way, how to live a different way.
Exactly.
Okay, so next we're talking about the Beauty and the Beast. So this is a pretty complex one. Because
Definitely.
there's also the Beast, too.
Right.
But we'll focus on Belle.
Yeah, the Beast got some baggage, too.
Because the Beast has a lot of isolation. Yeah,
he's got a backstory. He's got a backstory, for sure.
He does. He's hurting over there.
Yeah. Oh, poor Beast.
So the Beast is very isolated, and the Belle is very much longing for something.
Very much so. Once more than this provincial life.
Yes. Belle was a very independent person. She did not feel like she was in the right place. She was lonely. She felt different.
Yes.
And she learns to see beyond appearances in this story. Both literally and symbolically. But I feel like she always has, though, because Gaston was I guess you could argue he was a physically attractive man.
And he was very, what's the word? Like, very, his eyes were focused on physical attributes. He was very physically
motivated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So he was, strong and cool and tough, and all the girls loved him, but Belle saw right through it.
Right.
And then Beast was big and scary and mean on the outside, but Belle saw right through it.
Yeah,
and she
saw
ended up picking up on the heart.
What was in the heart.
She needed love. She needed heart. She was longing for like some genuine,
true, connection. Right.
She
truth.
Needed that.
She needed truth.
She needed truth so bad.
Yeah. And she lived in her books, which weren't even true because they were books. It was fairy tales. Yeah.
She needed something real.
Yep.
She needed something real.
Right.
Which is kind of ironic because the Beast was like a beast.
Right. And there was a curse on top of him.
Yeah.
There was a curse on top of him. So that curse challenged Belle it put a veil over what he truly was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was like that challenged Belle to see, okay, what's underneath of that? What is true?
Yeah.
She had to like dig deep and be like, okay, I see that he's this and he might be acting this way, but it's because he's a beast.
Yeah.
And I still have to look deeper. Mm-hmm. She had to.
She saw so deep.
Yeah, genuinely.
And she learned to get comfortable in the uncomfortable and see the good in the world and others.
Yeah.
She had to learn to dig a little deeper, to find some meaning.
Yeah.
You know?
To see truth when it's not completely apparent, when it's not all on the outside, when it's inside.
Yep. And kind of make the best out of what she was dealt with, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I think she was longing for some like crazy miracle to happen or some good life that she like wanted. And it kind of revealed itself in a weird way to her. But it kind of had to because it taught her things.
Exactly.
It taught her how to like value things.
Right.
More.
Yeah.
And how to take care of things in order to love them.
Right.
And to cherish things more.
Right.
And she learned to accept and love what is around her instead of looking past what is there and searching for more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she learned to love what she has instead of constantly searching for more.
Yeah.
Because, like, she didn't want to be locked up in that castle or wherever she was.
Right.
But she learned to appreciate it for what it was and really see the beauty in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, beauty in the beast.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true, Mary. Yeah. That's so true.
Beauty in the beast, right?
Yeah, she had to see the beauty in something very, very ugly.
Yeah.
And you know, before that, she had a very beautiful life. Like,
she did.
She did. Her, you know, everything was colorful.
On the outside.
Yeah, exactly, on the outside. She was provided for completely. The bakery was there was flowers, there was a bunch of townspeople. Maybe they weren't all the best.
Do you know what it is, though?
In the inside? What?
It's so her life looked beautiful, but on the inside,
yeah,
she felt like the beast almost, like an outcast. She felt like an outcast.
That's exactly what it was.
And then the beast looked like he had a terrible life, but he was a good person on the inside.
Right, like,
I mean,
genuinely.
like, he was, you know, not good, but they were both outcasts.
Right, exactly.
And they kind of, that's why they got along so well. They understood that in each other, and they helped change each other.
Right. They helped, like, bring that balance back.
Yeah.
For each other.
They did. Like, she learned to accept and to love when she was longing for so much. So she found something to long for.
Right.
To help somebody, to love somebody.
Yeah.
And he found somebody to give to.
Yeah, and kind of like ground himself with.
Yeah.
And you know, remind himself of who he truly is.
Yeah.
Regardless of what it looks like on the outside. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the reason he became a beast was because he was greedy and selfish.
Yeah, that's true.
So he learned how to
about that
give
part.
to somebody else and love somebody else.
Selflessly.
Yeah, selflessly. And she taught him so much of that.
Right.
She taught him so much of that.
Yeah, because he, like, who would want to give something to a beast? You know what I mean? And he knew that.
Yeah.
Once he was a beast, he was like, no one's going to love me.
Yeah.
You know, who would love a beast? Mm-hmm. But Belle did. Mm-hmm. And
that healed him.
Yeah, and I think that might have even healed her, too, in a way.
It healed her so much.
Because, like, for her to see what giving that to him can do to do for him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that makes sense, like, for her to show that love for him and then him be transformed by that love, for her to see that reminds her of how powerful her love can be and how powerful, you know,
yeah,
her
and they related to each other.
Exactly.
Because they were both outcasts.
Yeah.
So knowing what each other was feeling,
right,
they were kind of like, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
And even beforehand, like, Belle wasn't giving that love to her townspeople.
Yeah.
Even though, like, they weren't all the best on the inside, she still was like, I don't want this. You know what I mean? So it did show her how to accept people for truly who they are.
Yes. To really see beyond everything.
Genuinely.
So the curse is broken through love, but not necessarily like the curse is broken because of true love's kiss, but the transformation that happened while they were together.
Yeah.
That's what broke the curse.
It truly was.
When the beast wasn't selfish anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what broke his curse. And from Belle really coming in and being that for him.
Yeah. Yeah, for being that selfless love, and then for him accepting that selfless love and seeing, oh, this kind of love might exist. Because he never was that for himself or for anybody.
Yep. So it really is not just the true love's kiss. It's the work it takes to build a bond and a relationship with somebody.
It takes a lot of work.
It does.
When we're not in relationships, we're just going about our lives like everything's okay, without even realizing how much this baggage is.
It challenges you.
It is. And when you first get into that relationship, you're like, oh, wow, this is actually a lot heavier than I thought. Mm-hmm. And a lot, not as normal as I thought. Yeah. And then it's kind of like you need to face the fact that things haven't been normal for so long. And that's when that tipping point comes. And you're like, oh my gosh, my whole world's being broken down. Mm-hmm. This is crazy. Mm-hmm. But then something does good come out. Like something good comes out. Very, very good. Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, now we got story number 3, which is Rapunzel. And I'm going off of Disney's Tangled movie because that's my favorite. And I like that movie.
I kind of forget how this one goes a little bit.
Really?
Little.
Okay, so Rapunzel's locked away, but her real prison is not just the tower. It's her isolation and loss of agency. Because you know how Mother Gothel, like, kept her up there and, like, wouldn't let her leave and stuff?
Yeah.
So she was really being trapped by her mother's possessiveness and craziness.
Yeah, like, just being coddled and... Yeah.
It was really not good. And her whole life she had obeyed her mother and did everything she asked of her.
Right.
She sang the song and kept her mom young.
Yeah.
And stayed there.
Like an elephant on a string.
Yeah. An elephant. An elephant on a string.
Have you heard that before?
I haven't.
So it's like, if you convince an elephant... I forget how it is.
Because they're strong enough to break the string.
Yeah, like an elephant forgets that it's strong enough to break the string, but because it has this concept that it's tied down, it just will never break it.
Yeah, like she could have went down the tower. She has the hair to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
but she never did.
It's just, it's like it's a mental game. You know what I mean?
Such a mental game.
Yeah.
Rapunzel needed individuality and exploration to find out who she is. She's at the ripe age of 18. She needed to get out in the world.
Exploration.
And make friends and, like, know who she is and establish herself.
Right.
And Mother Gothel did not think about that when she kidnapped her.
Yeah.
She did not think, oh, this is a human being.
Oh my God.
They're gonna want to, like...
They need that discovery.
They're not just gonna be, like...
An exploration.
Trapped up here. Yeah. So she really was longing for that.
She needed that.
So then the prince comes along. Well, he's not really a prince. So Flynn Rider comes along and he helps her leave the tower. And they end up falling in love. And this causes Rapunzel not to want to go back to the tower. And yes, it's because she found love. She found Flynn. She found a friend.
Yeah.
She found somebody that taught her so much, more than Mother Gothel ever taught her.
Right.
Somebody that respected her, somebody that showed her the world for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Right.
You know?
And saw her as, like, an equal.
That's, like, really... She probably felt more loved with him than with her mom.
Yeah.
Because that was, like, vulnerable for her to go out there and for him to show her the world.
Right, and something that's so scary and unknown.
And make her feel safe throughout it.
Uh-huh.
Of course she doesn't want to go back.
Yeah. Wow.
But it's also because she finally tasted freedom and expressed herself outside of her mother's grasp.
Yeah.
And outside of the tower, she felt the most vulnerable she's ever felt in her entire life. She's learned the most she's ever learned, and she wants to keep learning.
Yeah.
It's only natural that a human is not going to be locked away forever.
Yeah,
They're
100%.
meant to touch grass. They're meant to have community.
And make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right.
And she goes out and meets all these people, like... Her human mind is going to think, I like being around people. Like, I want to talk to more people because that's what humans are supposed to do.
Exactly.
So...
We're meant to have all these connections with others.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there would be no initiation into these climax points.
Yeah.
Into these tower moments.
Yeah. So thinking about going back in the tower for her is, like, really scary because she's like, oh my goodness. Like, I guess I love my mom, but this is... a situation I don't want to be in again because that was depressing.
Yeah, she has had to choose that for herself, and that takes courage.
She was lonely.
It takes so much courage to be like, I'm doing this, and it's because I need it, and I don't care what anyone else says.
And she learned so much by doing that. The agency she took.
Yep, that takes so much courage to go against what you've known your whole life.
Yep. And she did it for herself.
Yeah,
she did it for herself.
And even just to step out of something that was so comfortable. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even just to take the leap of faith of like, okay, I'm going to leave.
Yep.
Because...
It's so scary.
It's so scary. Remember, she hit Flynn with a pan. She was like...
Oh, yeah, she was scared.
She was like...
She's never seen a man before.
Yeah.
Never.
What?
I wonder if she ever learned what a man was.
Talk about an elephant on a string.
Yep.
That's an elephant
This is trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma.
So
Rapunzel becomes someone new through throwing herself into the unknown, and she no longer is passive or controlled because she kind of broke the string.
She did.
She might still have that elephant brain, but it's rapidly going away.
Yeah.
And she's rapidly thinking, yeah, like, I don't feel so much of a strong cord pulling me.
Tied down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way I'm staying in this tower for the rest of my life.
I'm gonna go frolic.
Yeah, like I gotta talk to my mom about this. I'm not staying here forever.
Yeah.
And that's when she starts to be like, okay, Mom, like this is getting a little weird.
Right.
She also has to face a lot of pain knowing the truth behind her mom.
Right.
That's a lot of pain.
That's so much to realize, like, oh,
that her
this
mom
isn't
kidnapped
normal.
her, actually.
Yeah.
And she was keeping her there
and some,
to keep her young
like
forever.
something you felt so safe in actually is really bad.
Such a lie. Your whole life was a lie.
Yeah.
Your whole life was an entire lie.
That's so... Yeah, you're right. They didn't even show that internal process inside of her. That's like a storm. That is...
Such a storm. Oh my goodness. I would be a mess.
I've had old relationships where it was like that, where like we realized things were not normal, and it was like, wow. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot to face that.
So much.
So much.
Like, they should make a part 2 where she's just crying in her room all day.
Because that's
the
so
reality.
much work. Yeah, it's crazy. Disney really, really made it seem very romantic and very, very loving. But love is hard work.
Yeah.
It is, cutting cords.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of work.
So much work. And, Flynn Rider, the prince, per se, helped her realize all this. He helped her get out. He helped her be like, yo, your mom's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And he caught her hair in the end. He was like, you need to get away from this crazy lady.
Uh-huh.
And he wanted her to be happy.
Right.
And she realized that, and he helped her realize that.
That's amazing.
So I think the love story definitely played a role in her self-actualization and her realization about what was really going on and her true transformation on the inside.
Yeah. That's amazing. Do you remember when he was like, he came with his horse too?
Yeah.
And I feel like horses I think that's very symbolic because horses are very free spirits. And there's no way like, a mouse could run by and they're just running the other direction. They're very free. They can't be locked up very, I mean, we can domesticate them, but still, like they're very... they're known to be free animals and very free spirits.
Maybe that... Ooh, sorry, guys. Maybe that's kind of like showing his free spirit kind of rubbing off on her.
Yeah.
In a way.
Definitely.
Definitely rubbed... He was so free-spirited.
So free-spirited.
And it definitely rubbed off on her. And I think that taught her so much.
So much.
She was like, I like the way this guy goes about his life. I need to be more like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so she did.
Good for her, dude.
I know, right? And so at the end, her tears heal the prince's wound. And I think this is showing an image about how love and pain can equal renewal together.
Yeah.
So she's feeling the love. She's feeling the pain with her tear.
Yeah.
And it renewed him.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of symbolic as like love and pain come together and they create renewal
and
change
growth
and growth. So you
in a way you never would have
and
thought.
Pain.
Yeah. They make you grow in ways you never even thought were possible without you. So then, like, I guess circling back to that one question in the beginning, was it the love that was making them transform, or was it the actual
was it an excuse
situations? Yeah. I feel like most of the Disney stories, or at least all three that we talked about, like these situations happened, and they wouldn't have. You're right. Like it was the pain of the situation. And then it was the love that we felt from the others that then created this new path for having a new side of ourselves, a new being, a new
totally agree.
New person that we become out of love. And I feel like it's almost both. It's both.
Yeah, I think it's both too. The pain of the situation, like you said, and then the example and the leadership of the person that they love to help guide them around with that pain and help them through it almost, so that they can learn how to navigate it and see a different perspective on life,
right?
To kind of change.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of that pain.
And become someone that's has ownership of their life and feels like they have agency and truth.
Yeah.
And
so these girls are really feeling transformed. And
Right.
they're like young adults like us. So
Yeah.
it's at that perfect age where you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And they all have different family situations.
Right.
So to see them go through real life people experiences in these fairy tale ways is kind of interesting.
It really is. It really,
you can
really
kind of
is.
learn something from it.
It's so interesting how love initiates an internal growth inside of our soul. It's very interesting, and that isn't necessarily like the main theme, because as or maybe it is of the Disney stories, but when we're little we don't see that exactly. We see, all we see is love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then we grow up and we watch these Disney princesses as adults, and we're like, I actually can relate to her like so well.
So much.
Because I see her pain, and I see the way that these other people and these bad situations initiated more love and more growth and more
they had to grow to get out of it.
exactly more just more of themselves in a way, like more Disney princesses,
Yeah.
more of Rapunzel, more of Belle, and it just illuminates who they truly are, and it's beautiful.
I agree. So, can romantic love show us things in ourselves that we couldn't grasp onto before? Absolutely. Like we said, we see a lot through other people when we're willing to listen and we're willing to learn from other people that care about us. It might hurt to hear that we might not be right about life all the way.
Yep.
But it can change wonders if you allow yourself to listen to somebody and allow someone to help you.
Let them in like that. Very vulnerable.
It's so vulnerable, and it can hurt to maybe feel like, oh, maybe I was wrong about that. Maybe I can see things differently.
Yep. Yeah.
But it helps us move past these weird traumas and triggers that we had when we were kids.
Yeah.
The way we might react to things, the way we might be treating people based on a certain belief that we had when we were younger. And it changes us.
It does.
When we learn from other people. So
Yeah.
absolutely, romantic love definitely helps us change.
100%.
And I think that's valid in these stories. I think it's valid to have that as a tipping point for them in these stories. Because absolutely.
Right. Yeah, it might look like at surface level, it might look like it's toxic, but it's really not, because it gets you to another level of relationships at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
It does. Makes you a better human and
So, in the end, transformation isn't about, changing how you look or getting the happy ending or, getting the love. But it's about becoming more of yourself. And the process it took to get there.
Yeah.
And the realizations it took to get there. And the courage it took to get there.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
all of that is happening underneath the surface
And
in
then-
these stories.
Totally. I think love then becomes as a symptom of it, of all of that.
Yeah.
That journey that we take together.
Yes.
And it becomes love because we did it together. Yeah.
It's only natural that we change with the people around us.
Yeah.
Because
we grow with
it's
them.
hard to change when you're all alone. It's hard to tell yourself things that you don't want to hear. It's hard to tell yourself to change.
Right.
We kind of need the people around us to help us and guide us and show us.
We need that initiation. We need it.
We need the teachers. We need the love. And we need
The connection.
the initiation.
And the vulnerability. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's all I have for this episode. I'm so glad I got to do my project in this setting. I really hope you guys liked it. We really enjoyed talking about this. I thought it was a really great conversation.
I agree.
Thesis. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad to even do it with you, because I think we've had experiences like that too, where we've grown inside of our love.
Yes.
And it's, made us better and helped us see things we never would have seen without each other. And to drop what we know as normal and come to the reality of the situation and be like, hey, this is really bad, but it doesn't change how I see you.
Yeah.
And I want to show you something even better.
Yes.
Gorgeous stuff.
We need that as a people. So
check out our podcast.
Yeah, check out our podcast. I will put all the details in the description and everything. So thank you so much again, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah. Bye.